Okay, so someone hands you the Dallas Cowboys tomorrow. Maybe a distant relative leaves you their shares. Maybe the Jones family finally sells, and your bid wins. However it happens, the team is yours. The star, the stadium, the most famous franchise in American sports. Forbes values it at $13 billion, more than any sports team on planet Earth. It has held that title for 19 consecutive years. So, are you rich? The honest answer is maybe, possibly, depending on variables that have humbled some of the richest men in America. The man who sold this very team was losing $1 million a month on it. There are billion-dollar franchises that had to be sold just to pay a tax bill. And there are teams that lose on Sunday, every Sunday, and print money anyway. The difference between those outcomes is not luck. It is not even winning. It is economics, and the economics of an NFL franchise are almost nothing like what most people imagine. Here is what it actually looks like from the inside. The first thing to understand is what an NFL team actually is, and what it isn't. It is not a trophy. It is not even really a football team. It is one of 32 seats in the most exclusive business cartel in America. A private club that negotiates as one, sells as one, and splits the money as one. In 2024, that club generated $23 billion. Roughly 60% of it goes into one national pot: television money, league sponsorships, licensing. And that pot is split 32 ways, equally. In the league's last reported year, every team received $432.6 million before selling a single ticket, before winning a single game. Win the Super Bowl, $432 million. Go 0-17, $432 million. But socialism has never worked better than it does among these 32 billionaires. But that national check is the same for everyone. It is not what separates a good franchise from a great one. What separates them is the second number: local revenue. Tickets, suites, sponsorships, stadium events, everything you keep for yourself. A weak franchise pulls in around $100 million of local money. A good one, $250. The Cowboys pull in roughly $800 million every single year. Total revenue, $1.234 billion, leading every other team in football by at least $400 million. Operating income, $629 million. The second most profitable team on earth, basketball's Golden State Warriors, made $409 million. Nobody else is within reach. The Cowboys are not just in the cartel, they are the cartel's once-in-a-generation asset. And here is the strange part. They have not reached a conference championship game since 1996, 3 decades without even playing for a title. The value tripled anyway, then tripled again. Remember that. It will matter later. Because before you can own any of this, the club has to let you in. You cannot simply buy an NFL team the way you buy a company. 24 of the 32 owners must approve you, personally. The league's finance committee will dissect your net worth, your businesses, your debts, your history. No public corporations, no sovereign wealth funds. The NFL wants a human being with a face it can hold accountable. And the lead owner must personally hold at least 30% of the team. 30% of $13 billion is $3.9 billion from one person. And the league caps how much of the price you can borrow, currently around $1.4 billion. Against a $13 billion price, every other dollar must be equity, real money, yours and your partner's. Fewer than 50 people on earth can write that check, and the NFL can say no to all of them without giving a reason. Now look closer at the price itself. Jerry Jones paid $140 million for this team in 1989. At $13 billion, that is a 93-fold return, the greatest trade in the history of American sports. But you are not buying in 1989. You are buying at the top of the greatest sports asset boom ever recorded. The Commanders sold for $6 billion in 2023. The Broncos, $4.65 billion. Basketball's Lakers crossed $10 billion in 2025. Prices like these assume television money grows forever. For your $13 billion to double, this team must someday be worth 26. Who is the buyer at $26 billion? Nobody knows. The entire market is a bet that someone richer always shows up. So how do people actually pay for these things? Consortiums, one lead owner with the 30%, surrounded by limited partners, silent money, family offices, old fortunes. And since August 2024, something new, private equity. The league now allows approved funds to buy up to 10% of a team. No voting rights, no opinions, just capital. Why did the world's most exclusive club suddenly open a side door for Wall Street? Because the owners have a liquidity problem. Their wealth is enormous and completely frozen. You cannot spend a franchise, and you cannot sell 10% of yourself at the country club. Private equity is the pressure valve. Remember that too, because the reason the pressure exists is waiting at the end of this video. Say you are in, approved, financed, official. Now you inherit the machine that makes the local money, the building. In 2009, Jerry Jones opened the most expensive stadium ever built at the time. The original estimate was $650 million. The final bill, $1.15 billion, nearly double. That is normal for stadiums. Remember it. The city of Arlington put in $325 million of public money. Raised through higher sales taxes, hotel taxes, and car rental taxes, voters approved it. The Cowboys are very good at getting voters to say yes. Jones covered every dollar of overrun himself. That was the deal. What did the money buy? A retractable roof spanning 1/4 of a mile. Glass doors, 18 stories tall. A video screen 60 yards long, costing $40 million. The largest on Earth when it opened. 80,000 seats, expandable past 100,000. 300 luxury suites, some leasing for $500,000 a year. This is not a football field. It is a revenue factory with a football field inside it. And factories age. In April 2026, Arlington approved another $273 million for renovations. In exchange, the Cowboys signed a lease through 2055. Understand what that lease means. The franchise is now physically fixed to that ground for 30 years. Whatever happens around it, you are staying. Then there is everything it costs to actually run. Start with the players. The 2025 salary cap, $279.2 million per team. The cap is not optional, and neither is spending it. League rules force every team to spend at least 89% in cash. You cannot run this asset cheap. The cap also rises automatically because players are guaranteed roughly half of all league revenue. Every new TV deal you celebrate as an owner arrives with a matching invoice. Then the people the cap does not cover. A top head coach now costs up to $20 million a year. Coordinators, scouts, analytics staff, trainers, doctors, hundreds of football employees before you sell a hot dog. Game day itself is an army, 3,000 plus workers per game, security, concessions, cleaning, medical, parking. The building consumes electricity like a small city, whether the roof is open or closed. Insurance on an 80,000 person venue, property costs, maintenance on a 17-year-old Marvel. Team travel is a chartered wide-body jet, every away game, every year. And unlike almost any other business, your labor cost floor is set by a union contract you share with 31 competitors. None of these numbers care whether you win. They arrive every month, in full, forever. The industry eventually needed one number to hold all of this. For a football team, that number is operating income. Everything the franchise earns, minus everything it costs to run. Cowboys, $629 million. The typical NFL team, somewhere near 140. That gap is the entire story. Both teams get the same national check. Both pay the same salary cap. The difference is one building, one brand, and 40 years of compounding local deals. Valuations are set as a multiple of revenue. NFL teams now trade at roughly 10 times revenue, the Cowboys at more. Which means every recurring local dollar you add is worth 10 on the asset. This is why owners obsess over sponsorship patches and naming rights. A $20 million a year naming deal is $200 million of franchise value. And here is the trap at the center of it all. Your costs are fixed, rising, and contractual. The cap rises. The coaching market rises. The stadium debt does not care. But the revenue that justifies your $13 billion price is decided in rooms you do not control. Start with television. Media rights are the league's heart. Follow the ladder. In 1962, CBS paid $4.65 million a year for the entire league. By 1998, 8 years of rights sold for $17.6 billion. The current deals, roughly $110 billion over 11 years, $10 billion a year. From networks and streamers, fighting over the last thing Americans reliably watch live. In 2025, the commissioner said the league may reopen those deals as soon as 2026, years early. Because right now, the league holds all the leverage. But leverage is a market condition, not a law of physics. Cable is dying. The bundle that built this empire is already dead. The bet is that the streaming giants will bid against each other forever. If that auction ever cools, the multiple under every franchise cools with it. Then there is labor. The player's contract with the league expires after the 2030 season. In 2011, the owners locked the players out for 4 months. A lost season is not hypothetical in American sports. Hockey lost one. Baseball lost a World Series. Your mortgage would continue through all of it. If this all still sounds easy, meet the men who found out otherwise. Harvey Bum Bright bought the Cowboys in 1984 for around $85 million. Then Texas collapsed. The oil bust wrecked his businesses. The savings and loan crisis wrecked his bank. By 1988, Bright said the team was losing $1 million a month, the most famous franchise in football, hemorrhaging money in a state that worships it. He sold to Jones under distress for $140 million. The asset was fine. The owner's balance sheet was not. That distinction has destroyed more owners than losing ever has. Joe Robbie built the Miami Dolphins into a power and built their stadium with private money. Then, in 1990, he died. The estate tax bill came to $47 million. The family did not have $47 million in cash. Almost no family does. The IRS does not take payment in franchise shares. In 1994, the Robbie family sold the team and the stadium at a fraction of their worth. A championship franchise surrendered to a tax deadline. Pat Bowlen ran the Denver Broncos for 35 years and won 3 Super Bowls. He put the team in a trust for his 7 children and died without naming a successor. The children went to war. The fight lasted years. In 2022, the trust simply sold the team, $4.65 billion, a record price and the end of a 4-decade family dynasty. And Dan Snyder bought Washington for $800 million in 1999. Scandals, investigations, a $60 million league fine. His fellow owners effectively pushed him out the door. The door paid $6.05 billion. Here is the uncomfortable lesson. The cartel protects the asset even from its own worst owner. Run it brilliantly or run it into the ground. The seat keeps appreciating. So far. One more. When the Rams left St. Louis in 2016, the abandoned city sued the league. The settlement cost $790 million. Moving a franchise is theoretically your right. In practice, it is a courtroom, a decade of hatred, and $750 million. Which brings us to the part almost nobody thinks about when they imagine owning a team. Every owner leaves, every single one, and the American tax code is waiting at the exit. The federal estate tax, 40%. On a $13 billion asset, that is a bill north of $5 billion, due in cash, not in shares, not in memories. Jerry Jones is 83 years old. He has spent decades engineering the handoff. His 3 children run the team today. Trusts, gifted shares, valuation discounts, an entire legal industry exists for this one problem. This is the real reason the league opened the door to private equity. Aging owners need a way to raise cash without selling the whole team. The Robbie family teaches what happens if you skip this chapter. Your most dangerous opponent is not another team. It is a form filed 9 months after your death. None of this means owning the Cowboys is a bad business. It might be the single best business in American sports. Run the good scenario. $432 million arrives from the league before you lift a finger. Your building fills 10 times a year at football prices and 50 more for everything else. Concerts, college football, wrestling. This summer, the World Cup played 9 matches in this building, including a semi-final. Sponsors pay roughly $250 million a year just to stand near the star. It compounds to $629 million in annual operating profit, and the asset itself has appreciated faster than the stock market for 40 years. Jones did not just buy a team, he rebuilt the business model of American sports. He fought the league for the right to sell his own stadium sponsorships. They sued him for $300 million. He countersued for $700. The league blinked. Every team now prints local money using the playbook he wrote. He even co-founded the company that runs the money machines inside other teams' stadiums. One purchase, developed correctly, managed relentlessly. $140 million became $13 billion, and it changed the economics of every franchise in every sport. Now take the same franchise and change a few variables. The streaming wars end. The next TV deal grows slower, or not at all. The valuation multiple compresses from 10 times revenue towards 7. That alone erases roughly $4 billion of paper value. The 2031 labor talks collapse, and a season disappears. A year of stadium debt, staff salaries, and lease obligations with 0 football revenue. Now, the estate transition lands mid-crisis, a $5 billion tax bill against an asset nobody can quickly sell. Your children negotiate with the tax authority, the league, and each other simultaneously. The franchise survives all of it. Franchises always have. The family often does not. Ask the Robbies. Ask the Bolins. So what separates the owners who build dynasties from the ones who surrender them? It is not market size. Green Bay wins titles from a town of 100,000. It is the local revenue engine which determines what you earn beyond the shared check. It is the stadium deal which determines who pays for your factory. It is the capital structure which determines whether a bad decade is survivable. And it is the succession plan which determines whether your family keeps the seat at all. The richest franchise is not the one that wins the most games. The Cowboys have proven that for 30 years. It is the one that turns 8 home Sundays a year into $1 billion. Everything else, the draft picks, the coaches, the heartbreak in January, is just the show that keeps the machine warm. And if you can run that machine across decades of labor wars, media revolutions, and one unavoidable tax bill, then yes, you might be very, very rich. But that is not what most people are imagining when they dream of owning the Dallas Cowboys.